Okay, for this section, we're going to multiply. So we already talked about multiplying in the last video where we were getting rid of the radicals in the denominator. So to multiply two radicals, you just multiply their insides. So if we have the square root of a squared times the square root of a, so there's a couple ways to do this one. Square root of a squared is just a. You could write that and then you'd have the square root of a left and you'd just be done. That's fine because, let me write it with red here. Square root of a squared is a. So you'd have a times the square root of a, and that would be as far as you could go. That's fine. Or if you didn't think of it that way, you would do a squared times a, which is a cubed. So you'd have the square root of a cubed. Well, the square root of a cubed is 2 goes into 3 one time with 1 left over. So so you'd have a square root of a. So either way, you end up with a square root of a. So however you get there is fine. For the next one though, if you try to simplify first, it makes it probably more complicated because you would have, if you do the square root of x cubed, that would be x square root of x times the square root of x to the 7th is x cubed times the square root of x, because 2 goes into 3 one time with 1 left over, and 2 goes into 7 3 times with 1 left over. And then you would multiply x times x cubed gives you x to the 4th. Square root of x times the square root of x gives you x. And then you'd have x to the 4th times x, which would eventually get you to x to the 5th if you really wanted to do it that way. You could, but that's the roundabout way, because for this one actually, if you multiply first, sorry, I'm holding the baby. Oops, excuse you. Well, I'm doing this and he's started wiggling on me. If you multiply first, x cubed times x to the 7th is x to the 10th. So you'd have the square root of x to the 10th. 2 goes into 10 5 times, so you end up at x to the 5th a little bit quicker. So this one, it would be easier to multiply the 2 first and then simplify. For the next one, we have the square root of 2a to the 4th times the square root of 5a to the 3rd times the square root of 2a to the 7th. So again, for these, I would probably multiply first because it might actually simplify faster than simplifying and then multiplying. So you multiply all of them together. So 2 times 5 is 10 times 2 is 20. So we're going to have the square root of 20. A to the 4th times a cubed times a to the 7th. You just add all the exponents. So 4 plus 3 is 7 plus 7 is 14. So 20, square root of 20, a to the 14th. So for a to the 14th, 2 goes into 14 7 times, and I'm going to talk about the 20 here in just a second. So you're going to have an a to the 7th, and then the question is, what do you do? Let me just write it this way: square root of 20. Deal with the 20. What do you do with the 20? So to simplify numbers, if they have a perfect square that will divide into them, you want to take that out. So 20 factors of 20, you got 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. So 4 is a perfect square, so 20 is 4 times 5, and the square root of 4 is 2. So you would actually have square root of 4 is 2, a to the 7th, and then the square root of 5 is still left in there. So you always want to simplify your numbers if you can. If they have a perfect square, that will divide into them so that you can write them simplified rather than the square root of 20, it's 2 square root of 5. For this one, you've got square root of x times the square root of x cubed minus square root of 2x to the 4th. So this works just like everything else. You distribute. Distributive properties true. So the square root of x times the square root of x to the 3rd is the square root of x to the 4th. Minus square root of x times this is the square root of 2x to the 5th. And you can simplify that. Square root of x to the fourth, 2 goes into 4 2 times, so that's all, you're done. Is x squared minus square root of 2x to the fifth. 2 you can't do anything with, so you're going to leave it alone. 2 goes into 5 2 times with 1 left, so square root of 2x. Again, if you prefer, you can think about that as x to the fourth times x. And you cannot combine these because this one's an x squared, this one is an x squared, square root of 2x, so you don't have another square root of 2x, so you're just done. So you can only combine like terms. Just if this was gone, you could go ahead and make it 0, or if this one had a square root of 2x, you could go ahead and make it 0 as well, but since it doesn't, you're just finished.